Hello there. This is Michael Myrdad, and this is our Friday Night Spiritual Insights with Michael Myrdad. So thank you for joining us. So I want to talk about happiness, and that includes the real story to happiness, what it is and what it isn't, and the things that help us find happiness, experience happiness, and the things that take happiness away. A lot of people think that happiness is something that is circumstantial. If this would happen, then I would be happier. And we all have said that at least once, if not 1,000,000 times in our life. If only, but if only is actually a proverb, so to speak, an axiom of the ego. Because it tells you you're missing something, but if only you had it. So as soon as it convinces you that you're missing something, it's almost its next line is usually, and if only you had that, you'd be better off. So then what it does is, it's like Gollum, I think was his name, right, in Lord of the Rings. You're out there, looking for this precious. You're looking for this thing that you think makes you happy. And when you don't have it, you go crazy. You start just having this psychotic experience. It doesn't look like it because people cover it up by other names and just think it's heartbreak or infatuations and all the names we give for things that seem to make us feel better in our lives. When in fact, you're crazy. You're losing your mind. And you start to become desperate. So this is kind of funny if you think about it. Somebody ought to make a video to this effect, but picture, bars, people going to pick up on each other and meetups and hookups and all this. And it's just coming to me as I'm saying this, but it'd be great if somebody made a video where, people are meeting like, hey there, the little lines, the little pickup lines, come here often. It'd be great when if the recipient party, says, I'm not interested, picture the other person going, precious, kind of going nuts into that character because this person's turned them down, took their ring away. And it's like that. People are thinking, you've let me down, you've, hurt me. And I'm making fun of it and making light of it, but I am not ignorant to the pain that it causes as well. It's really sad and so forth, but no one, nothing has the power to remove anything from us. Then why does it seem like it? Because we didn't own the happiness, we borrowed it and acted like it was someone else that gifted it to us or gave it to us or rented it to us or whatever, as though they're the landlord and we're just the tenant. And it's off, man. It's wrong. So it's like, it's nuts. In reality, who's really in charge here? And when I've done healing work for all these years that I've done it, when people come to me and say, I met this guy a year ago or this girl or whatever it is, and oh my God, I really fell hard for them. They seemed so this and they gave me that, and they talk about all this stuff, but it's always amazing. 99 out of 100 times, when we talk about the healing that they want to do, which is why they came to see me, we find that at the end of the conversation or session, we're not talking about that person at all. We're talking about who they were making up for, who they were compensating for. Well, I'm really mad at this person that broke my heart. Okay, and then we do some inner work and we find, wait, wow, this person is my dad who left our family early, and I was hoping to find a guy that would be a provider, let's say, unlike my dad. And then I was looking for, my partner was really boring and kind of flatline, more like a friend than a lover. And then, and then I found this guy or girl, and they were just, wow, they were real sexy and high energy. And well, yeah, so are narcissists and psychopaths, so really, do you want to just think that that's automatically going to set you up for something great? No, so you have to look at what's really going on. And it's quite depressing, by the way. When I, tell you that we're going to talk about how to do this, we're going to talk about how to heal this, it doesn't always start with this beautiful high energy. Quite often, it goes into a darker place. The saying, it gets worse before it gets better, it's kind of like that. It's not because I'm preaching a negative direction to anybody, but what happens is, as you first awaken to yourself, you start to realize how many layers of your unself have been in control for so long, and that is disturbing. That's why Jesus says in the Gospel of Thomas, instead of just seek and ye shall find, he actually says it differently. Seek and you shall become disturbed. Keep seeking and then you shall find, and so on. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but that's it. So it is upsetting. It is disturbing to look at what we've become. It is disturbing to realize, well, I was married for 50 years only to find out that all that time my husband or wife was having a second life with the next door neighbor. What do you do with that? 50 years or 5 years or whatever it is. It's like, what's true? And how do I know what's true? You can't be happy with a divided life. Divided we fall. Now, we could say the opposite of happiness is like depressed. That's kind of a no-brainer in a sense. But happiness or depressed. So people think they're happy because somebody's in their life. The person leaves their life and then they're depressed, obviously. But it's not just people. Jobs. I have this job. Now, just because you don't consciously know it, how are you so sure that your soul isn't saying, hey, sweetheart, beloved, it's time that we leave this job because I have a better one for you. That's not the way humans think typically. That's how the soul thinks, but the human self, which the ego convinces us is separate from everything and therefore can't trust anything because everything is outside and not out for our greatest good. So the ego puts us on a tangent to seek and never find. And the ego puts us on a tangent to grab and grasp at things, pull them to us for a momentary sustenance. It's like a supplement. People are like supplements. I'm a little low on vitamin B, or B complex or whatever. And wow, this person served as a good B complex. They gave me, a stress releaser and energy, a higher energy. This one gave me this. But people aren't supposed to be like supplements. Nothing in this world needs to be like a supplement. It doesn't mean all forms of supplements are wrong. It's just that we have to see what they really are to us and not be deluded by them. Go ahead and use them if you must, whether it's nutritional supplements, people, or anything else, but not to get delusional about it, not to get caught up, because then you're going to crash. You guys all know the idols fall, and the greater you put them up, this person is my one and only this person is my one and only that, then they come crashing down. Whether they throw you under the bus, whether they reject you, betray you, whether they pass away, even in a state of love with you still, they pass away, and then you're heartbroken. There need not be the crash, but it's going to happen often in this world. And if it's going to happen, forgive yourself. And when you forgive yourself, if you feel happy afterwards, you'll know you actually really did forgive, because forgiveness restores you to who you really are. It doesn't just restore what you thought you lost and wanted back. You don't say, okay, I'm going to practice forgiveness, bring it back now. That's not how this works. Forgiveness is synonymous with the concept of unconditional love. And as soon as you put a condition on your happiness, you're not able to forgive, and you're not going to experience true happiness, obviously, because you put a condition. I'll be happy if only I get this person back. And I know it makes sense to the head, but the soul knows better. So our soul is so every day, just so much trying to teach us. My beloved, it says to the human self, I'm just trying to teach you how to be more like your soul self. And the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. You keep settling and fighting and resisting and pushing back on every lesson I try to bring to you to help you wake up. The lessons are never slapping your hand. The lessons are, they can look like that, but only because the ego self wants to treat us as though we've been slapped when all we were really experiencing was an awakening. Like, I need to think twice about whatever it is, rushing into relationships prematurely or jumping into jobs just because of the pay. So the soul's going to say, I keep trying to tell you not to do that. And so the soul might say, we have another job we're going to go to. You're going to feel like, I had a great paying job and I lost it. The universe keeps punishing me, taking away good things like good pay. But it didn't take it away. You got attached to it and thought you're supposed to stay there. You're feeling that. So you fabricate the universe is doing this so that you don't take responsibility for the fact that I probably need to be going somewhere else. How do I know that? Well, apparently it is true because I'm going somewhere else. You know, it's kind of a funny thing, but we can really discern what is really best for us or what's really going on by just looking around us. Instead of wishing and willing that something were different, wishing and hoping something were different, here's what is. Well, I wish my partner was nicer to me. Okay, but they're not. So do you want to stay with them or not? Well, I would if they were nicer, but they're not. So what are we going to do? That's the reality. And we think that's just terrible. When in fact your soul knows that you'll be happier if you own this and see it. No, I'm not happy at all. I'm upset because you're making me see that my relationship is terrible. That is like a sneeze. It's uncomfortable for a second, but as soon as you get it and move forward, you're going to feel better. So sneeze, get it over with. Cry, get it over with, because we have a better life, better relationship for you. So happiness is not something you buy. Happiness cannot come from the outside. And there's two aspects of happiness, and I've done a talk on it, the other aspect, which is called joy. Joy is a God feeling. Happiness is a human feeling. It's not a bad feeling, it's a human feeling. But happiness is like a human version of joy. Okay? Happiness, a human version of joy. But if my happiness comes from the joy I feel, then it's authentic and it's real, it's great. If my happiness, because now there's two parts of happiness. There's two aspects of happiness, and that there's happiness and then there's joy. One's human, one's more spiritual. But then down here, happiness, the lower aspect of happiness, the human version, it splits into two. One that is coming from joy and one that is coming from ego stimulation. You know, like a happy pill. Wow, I took some ecstasy. I feel so high. You know, this one guy telling me once, poor guy, you know, he's going, yeah, I was really getting into this ecstasy stuff. You know, years ago, he's trying to convince me that this was great. And he's going, I'm really getting into ecstasy. And wow, it just makes you feel like love for everyone. Well, that's chemical. It's not authentic coming from the heart soul experience. It's a stimulus of some kind. It's like saying, you know, every time I light up a joint or drink a beer, I no longer have problems. But you do, because as soon as you sober up, they're there again. So it's not authentic. But this guy, you know, he's saying, yeah, taking ecstasy. Well, he said it was great. You know, you feel like love for everyone, and so you feel aroused and you have sex with everyone. And he said the only thing is you have to take ecstasy, but then you also have to take like a little blue pill to be able to get the body to get stimulated, because the one takes away the other. Now you have to start thinking that through. I'm just feeling this synthetic, not real version of love. But I'm feeling this love for everyone. Then I'm wanting to have sex with everyone. But then I can't have an erection if I'm a male. And so I have to take a pill for that to happen. You know, that should sound a little bit odd. I think it's pretty funny because I think it's so ironic. And I think it's funny that people don't get it. It's just like ludicrous. But at the end of the day, what are we doing? A pill to get happy? Really? You know, no. I probably need to refrain. But if I'm sad, Michael, what do? I need to feel some happiness. First and foremost, and what I do, I mean, because I mentioned last week, you know, man, it's been such a challenging last several weeks, like intensely challenging. And witnessing so many things, experiencing so many things, it's like, wow, this is just so heavy. And how to deal with it. And I'm telling you, in seconds there were moments. In seconds, it was different because of doing the internal work first. Things could literally be, I could literally knock off on the fingers 1, 2 points that are totally nuts. Here's something that's messed up today. Here's something went wrong. Here's a communication that went awry. I could name them and count them off on my fingers and throw out 10 things immediately that are just like, that's how intense it was. And I took those 10, figuratively and literally, took those 10 to the altar and just did, okay, I have a spare minute here. So doing the prayer work, you know, surrendering this to God, calling upon, you know, Spirit's presence, immediately felt a shift. Immediately then, besides feeling the shift inside, saw the shift on the outside, and immediately saw some of these things turn around. Like Suddenly this got fixed and this got repaired. And that's when you know the fixes, the repairs are authentic healings rather than just little sort of manipulations on the outside, because they're coming from something authentic inside. So when I plug into God, I feel joy. The joy downloads happiness, and the happiness starts to sort of wash over that which was sadness or depression or whatever else might be going on in our lives. That's how it authentically can happen. That's the highway of making this work. Furthermore, not the highway, but the high way. Furthermore, it doesn't mean you can't do things on the outside as well. Just don't only do outside and negate the inside. When you do things on the outside, what it would look like is, okay, things are messed up. I do my inner work. I see some clearing. It feels better. And there's one person who something went awry on a phone call. Let me call them and apologize, for example. Or let me get that bill paid. Or let me check off some things, clean my desk, or whatever it is. Those are things you can do on the outside just to sort of feng shui things into a different form. Feng shui is, an ancient Chinese art that has to do with the proper placement of things, like clearing energy in your life, in your body, in your house, in your office, and so on, your environment. So when you're not feeling joy, you're usually not plugged in enough to God, because God is your source of joy. First of all, not plugged in. Second of all, not only are you not plugged in, often when you're not feeling joy and you're feeling sad or depressed or hurt or angry or whatever it is, that means you're investing, not only not investing in God, but you're in your relationship with God. You're investing in a relationship with your ego. You're listening to your ego's whispers, like this voice, again, using like the Gollum in Lord of the Rings, where he's got that nice little voice going, let's try and be nice. And this other voice says, no, you can't trust anyone. You're listening too much to that ego voice. The ego voice that wants you to murder your relationships, destroy your self-esteem, and so on. I know it may not seem like it's consciously doing that, but it is undermining you and any of us that listen to the ego. So if we want happiness, it really is an effect of plugging in properly to spirit. Then I get joy in my heart and happiness in my life. If I'm not feeling that, then it's because I'm not plugged in. I'm plugged into my ego. So instead of joy, I start to feel fear. And instead of happiness that came from joy, I have what? Sadness, depression, and other symptoms, irritability that come from being disconnected, separate, and afraid. So there's a cure. Plug back in, humility, prayer, humble prayer, and just be vulnerable, open up. But a lot of us, someone said recently, well, I want to change. For example, there was something going on in their life and they're saying, I would like this to change and I would like to be happier. And I said, remember, part of you wants to be happy. What do you mean part of me? Well, fine, then it's the bigger part. No, part of you wants to be happy. And apparently part of you doesn't. How do we know? Because it's not happening. So how do we know which one's winning? The one that's happening. If you want to be happy, but you're not yet, there's still too big a part of you that doesn't want the happiness. Now, please don't feel judged or all disheartened and disillusioned, dispirited from that. Just hang out for a second. It happens to all of us. If my shift is not happening, I don't yet want it badly enough. Does that make me a bad person? Not at all. In fact, it could mean that when I wanted to be upset and angry, now I don't always consciously want to be upset and angry, but what if somebody left me and I really don't want them to leave me and it really hurts me? I don't want to smile and be happy the next day, because then it's like nobody realizes how badly I wanted that relationship. So in part, I play a role. I need to be upset. I need to be upset and sad, and so that everybody knows that I'm actually not getting what I want. We play roles, and most people don't want to admit that, but it's true. We play along, and we, a little extra tears and a little extra this or that, when in fact, if we tuned in to our soul self, we'd be like, oh man, it's good that that's over with, jobs included. We're afraid of the future. Well, if this person left or a job ended, I don't want to look all confident and centered then I won't have any sympathy from anybody, and people might not help me find another job, and I am afraid of that. There's little investments, but I was saying to somebody in a session, part of you does want and part of you doesn't want to just bounce back and have your health, money, job, person, partner, or whatever. And it wasn't easy for them to hear, but I gave some vivid examples, and I was saying things like, well, if, for example, and I've used this one for many people, you're all upset. You're angry that someone betrayed you and you were with them for 5 years or 50 years or whatever. Now, you got to be really upset. You got to tell people, after 50 years, 5 years, whatever, look what they did to me. Can you believe this? And you're getting a lot of support because you're hurting. I get that. But here's what you don't want to say. Here's what's actually happening inside. Even on the outside, oh God, can you believe it? Oh my God, I don't even know if I can get out of bed. I'm depressed because somebody betrayed me the way they betrayed. And you go on and on. But if you were in touch with your soul, what you would say is this. Wow, I just had a major epiphany. I had this relationship and it was lasting so long and it was so deep and invested that when it ended, I got really angry, hurt and angry. But I continued looking at it. And for a moment, I wanted to say, you blankety blank, how dare you? And then I thought to myself, let's look at this, the real version of the relationship, which is what? Well, I guess if I have to be honest, I wasn't really in love with this person. I got together with him to spite my mother, or they had money, or they were promising. They looked like a promising prospect for a leader kind of person, or she was sexy, or they were handsome, or whatever it is. They made me feel good about myself. They had a great sense of humor, and my family never had that, so it felt good. Whatever your reasons, that means you basically rented them, you used them. So you would be saying, if you were a soul, if you could speak from your soul, and so, wow, this was kind of a real mind-blowing epiphany. I basically used this person. So at first I was like wanting to be, oh, woe is me. And then I thought, oh, oops, I used this person. At first I wanted to say, you blankety blank. And now I'm like, I want to say sorry. Not that you do say sorry, because it can confuse people and sometimes make them think that hurtful behaviors is okay. I'm not saying to do that. But I am saying inside your soul to say, I get it. Most of the time when this happens, not all the time, but most of the time, we were compensating. This was like a friend, or I was abused as a child and this was a safe person. So they were, kind of boring, but they were safe. So you used them for the safety, and now you hate them for being boring. So we don't usually own our agendas in relationships. We even sound vicious to even think and speak that we had agendas. Nobody wants to pretend, to own that and step up and own that, like I said. People don't like to just put that out there and say it's possible. You don't have to preach it to the world because you might be judged by others, but you do need to own it for yourself. I am not happy because they left me turns into, I'm not happy because they left me, but then again, we were using each other. They wanted me for my this and I wanted them for their that. And now we're both kind of ticked off. But really all that happened was reality came around. I'm a little extra mad at them because they're the one who called it off instead of me. Which means I'm mad that I didn't have the courage, which means I'm angry at myself more than them. And it all starts turning. Yes, I'm mad at them, but then again, I'm also mad at myself. But then again, I'll just forgive them and I'll forgive myself. It's that easy, but it's not always easy for people that want to defend it and pretend it didn't happen. We may not always be able to see our role in these things, but we could if we'd sit still long enough to look at it. You cannot have happiness when you're in denial. You can't have happiness when you're a control freak. You can't have happiness when you refuse to forgive. You can't have happiness when you want to stay angry. It just won't work. If you want to have happiness, which comes originally, like I said, ultimately from joy, and that comes from God, on the outside, it also comes from repairing relations, practicing forgiveness. There's something that happens. We think that happiness is a pill on the outside, so we keep looking for the thing that's going to make us happy. And what I'm saying is, taking the energy, the pressure, the layers of weights off of happiness, it gets to come up. So what are the weighted things that keep happiness from coming up? Well, judgments, hurts, hates, control, like I said, I just named those things. But also, on the outside, what if I'm low on certain nutrients? Go ahead, add those to your inner work. Don't replace them but add them. You don't replace the other, but you add, okay, I'll take some, maybe I'm low on B vitamins. Maybe there's a hormonal drop, maybe I'm low on sugar levels right now, my pancreas. maybe my thyroid's down. And so I'm sitting here every day meditating, come on, God, I want to feel joy and then happiness, Michael said. And in fact, your thyroid's low, so it's not physiologically kicking in. You're sort of fighting your physiology. Yes, ultimately you're a spiritual being, but you seem to be for now a human being. So we have to bring the spiritual self in and still accept that we're human and try to find that balance so that we can have not only the joy of spirit, but the happiness of body and human self. So yeah, hormone levels and so forth. And then also the psychology behind it. How can I be happy if I'm at a job that's incongruent? How can I be happy if I'm in a partnership that's incongruent? How can I be happy if I'm having conversations that don't seem very congruent? Like a lot of bickering or competition or whatever it happens to be. So if we want happiness, then we have to see what we don't want. And I know some positive thinkers tell you, don't focus on what you don't want. They're wrong. You must own what you don't want before you start looking at what you do want. It's both that you have to do. Healing the old and bringing in the new. You can't just jump forward into the new. They're sadly mistaken, which is, it all comes out in the wash in the end. They're good for something, the positives, but they miss an important piece. You can't just hype yourself into happiness, because then it's just another stimulus that you're using. Positive thinking techniques and teachers and channels that tell you, focus on happiness, you'll be happy. You also have to become determined to stop being addicted to unhappiness. You have to decide not to any longer feed the beast of depression and so forth. And it's still going to come up once in a while, no matter how, Jesus himself, there were moments where he felt a heaviness, they describe in the Bible, a heaviness, besides moments of tears, a heaviness, and that happens, we're healers and so forth, and we're healing and we're working with people, and it's hard not to hear, feel, pick up occasionally the quantity of heaviness in this world, the painful things people do to each other. It's pretty sick. Also, just the weight of the world as we know it, in the form of the fact that the world is an illusion, and yet it every day weights us down in our bodies. So that's almost a subconscious fight that depresses us, because depression, the opposite of happiness, is, it's chemical, it's psychological, it's kind of a combination of things. So we want to turn all of it around. I tend to use a phrase, hit things from all sides. So yes, get the hormones checked, but they don't fix your soul, but check them. Check your nutrient levels. It doesn't hurt. And are you getting enough sleep? Of course, there's another one. Some of you folks out there can post other things, other ideas you've heard, or things you've experienced. Some of you are going to go, you know what, I took melatonin, or someone's going to say, I took this or that, and it really kicked in. I'll tell you one thing, a supplement called SAM-E, SAM-E, like same, but SAM-E. And sold usually Costco, and I think Walmart carries it. I would, if it were me, I'd probably choose the extra strength version. And I think there's two popular brands. This isn't a commercial break. I'm just saying there's this thing called SAM-E, and there's more than one manufacturer. But it is, without getting into the physiology, the effects of it and all that, the chemistry of it, you can Google it. But it was outlawed in America for a long time because it worked. you know, and it's kind of nice. There's a blend of things in there. It has St. John's wort and other things, herbs that are good for, you know, healing depression. But this doesn't claim to heal depression. What it does is it plugs holes in your nutritional level or your nutrient level that would then turn that around. Your physiological version of being higher, your energy, you know, energetically. So depression, opposite of happiness, is also not only physiological, but it's also energetic and emotional, but energetic, your vitality level. So Qi Kung, you know, doing some conscious breathing can stimulate energy and Qi into the body to help counter the physical version or the energetic version of being unhappy or lacking happiness. Again, happiness is an inside job, but supported on the outside. So think of it like that and try this from all sides. Understand that, you know, you're going to have days that are more challenging, and that will tempt you to go, well, I'm feeling so challenged. I mean, wow, you know, there's days when it's like, we say to ourselves, man, I'd like to just curl up in bed because I'm physically tired, energetically tired, or emotionally tired, whatever it is. The fact that you feel any version of tired is the opposite of happy and vital. And even if you're happy and vital in this world, there's people around you that aren't liking that, and that weighs you down. So there's so much trying to pull us the other direction. We're definitely the minority, those of us who believe in love and health and self-help and meditation and inner peace and so on. You know, we're the minority. And then when you look at the minority that are into that, how many are authentically into that? And then we're really a minority, because a lot of people talk it, you know. It's okay to, you know, wear an Om symbol on your shirt as you have another beer, but I mean, come on, you know. It's okay to you know, listen to your favorite mellow, keep things light and cool and reggae music, and you know, as you cheat on your wife or husband or whatever. So you know, listen to Bob Marley while you know, do The Neighbor. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So I don't believe in those things, but I mean, we all slip, we all make mistakes, but I mean, saying first catch your lifestyle that's off. Look for hypocrisies in your lifestyle. Not a moment you slipped here or there, but start with the biggest issues if you can. Some people would say start with the minor issues and work your way up to the other. If you do it, I'll support you on it, if you'll at least do it. But a lot of people won't even get to the bigger issues because they'll slip too much even working on small issues. So I would just say work on whatever you can authentically work on, but change something. Change anything that is weighing you down, creating an incongruence, contradicting, and so on, because divided we fall. Jesus is explaining in A Course in Miracles at one point, depression comes, he says, almost like a splitting headache is when your head is going two different directions. It's splitting. You'd like to do this, but you're doing that, and now the weight of that decision or lack of decision is weighing on you, so you get this headache. Similarly, he says, when you're depressed, you're dispirited, which is like saying the opposite of inspirited or inspired. So when you're not living an inspired life, you're living a despired or expired life. So it's depressing. And another way to say it is divided we fall. Another way to say it is the rug's getting pulled out from under you. And each time you get up and it gets pulled out, it's tiring. You're in a relationship that's very narcissistic and someone's gaslighting and pulling the rug out from under you, and it messes with your mind. You just don't even know what's sane anymore. And I know some of you, come to me for counseling with similar things. My mom does this, my husband or wife does that, and so on, my kids or whatever it is. And the games, to just mess with your mind that you just don't even know what end is up, because when you're told a big enough lie often enough, you start to believe it. That's the old saying. And even the most, sane, strong person, by nature, you start to wear down. A big enough lie often enough. That's what Hitler did. That's what other megalomaniacs do. Who would think that you could just pull this off? Take over a nation, a country, imprison people and burn them alive? I mean, Do you think you could easily just step up and do that? No, you have to lie to them and make them believe something enough. Now, this isn't like I'm giving you some politics or global crisis kind of lecture. I'm saying even in your own home, someone tells you something that isn't really true. You'll never amount to anything your parent says, or a partner who says, you leave me, nobody else will want you. And there's a part of us, forgive me, I'm using a play on words, but dumb enough to believe it. Okay? There's a part of us naive enough, weak enough. Now you can say that's terrible that they would do that, but you also don't have to believe it. You don't have to choose to believe it, and you are choosing. Well, no, they brainwashed me, but you also allowed that. But I had no choice. I was just a 5-year-old. I understand that. Now that you're not 5 anymore and you're 55, why aren't you at a counselor? So keep making excuses and it won't fly. Repair what they've done. Prevent what they're doing and repair what they've done so that you can move forward. And I keep saying, and stick together. Use your counselors, use your sponsors, use your life coaches, use your chaplains, use whatever you can to feel supported in that. It's a little more difficult when you're alone doing these things. But do what you can. You're entitled to happiness. And I did use that word in a good way. Not entitled like some, entitled person who thinks they deserve there's like spoiled and they have commands to give everybody. I'm talking about you are entitled to miracles. You are entitled to happiness, meaning God wills it for you. Therefore, you're entitled to it. Entitled means it is part of your title. You're a holy child of God. Therefore, happiness is not a tall order. Not being happy means something's wrong. Being happy, that's organic. That's perfect. I should expect to be happy. Not in a expectant, like having expectations way, but it shouldn't surprise me. Well, of course I'm happy. Yeah, this is what it's like to be plugged in with God. That's the way it should look. That's the way it should feel. That's the beauty of being part of God. And reminding ourselves of that, we come out of the dark, the darkness in the dark night of the soul or the dark moments of our lives. So happiness is something you're meant to be feeling, guys. All of us. And there's moments when we're not in the mood to be happy because we're angry that something didn't go our way. Or for me, it's not usually going to be a thing that could happen that would just like, I'm not happy. I feel happy almost all the time. For me, it's typically when there has to be like 100 things happening at once, and then it's like, wow. And then even then, that has to usually last a long time to weigh enough on me to just be like, oh. And then I just sometimes try to snap out of it. I don't force myself to snap out of it, like as though I'm being wrong or bad. I just give myself an opportunity to snap out. Sometimes maybe I'm going to just go, well, I don't really feel like doing anything. And so, well, I think I'm going to I'm just going to breathe and make myself go and trim roses today. I walk outside, trim roses. Great. Because I refuse to become paralyzed or immobilized by it. Whatever it is, I refuse to let it control. And that might make a difference right there, just movement. And which is, like I said, a little qigong, a little energy, a little air. But it's also, I accomplished something and I'll feel a little better. Sometimes it's going to be, of course, I do the inner work, but I'm talking about what to add on the outside. So it might be I'm going to trim some roses. It might be, well, things are just, wow, so out of control today. Everything's just so nuts the last weeks. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and sit in a hot tub or something. If I did that when I was living in an apartment even many years ago, single. Just go and sit in the hot tub. Something to kind of break the trance of life. For some of you, it's a song, a band, an album. For some, it's a, favorite movie or whatever. Whatever it takes, just find something that symbolizes, like Earth, Wind, and Fire sang, when you feel down and out, sing a song and it'll make your way, It'll bring you out to make you want to move and shout and dance and, feel something different. So just consider these things. Never let life, this world, a person, anything immobilize you and get you stuck into a downer, a depression. If you're down, that's okay. Go down, cry, do what you need to do. Stay in bed if you need to, but be careful not to become immobilized. Do something else and break it up at some point. Give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Put a little time limit on it. It's called a boundary on yourself, so that you go, okay, time to brush off and I'm going to go and do something. And it could be anything. I mean, honestly, make yourself get in the car, go and get some ice cream. I'm not saying the traditional, yeah, when you're bummed that somebody left, you should eat a gallon of ice cream. I'm not giving you that lecture. I'm talking about the movement part, not the addiction for an addiction, but the movement. Break the trance. Do something different. Okay? And last but not least, make a difference. When you are helpful to anybody else, feeling bummed, feeling down, go to the store. I don't care what you buy. Buy bubble gum. But when you're in the store, lend $5 or hand $5 up to the person behind you who's in line, pay their way $5 or whatever, leave. It'll help shift something, because there's almost no greater thing to do on the outside. Greatest thing is ultimately with God inside. But of all the tools outside, one of the greatest things, if not the greatest, be of service. When you make a difference, it's really hard to stay bummed, because something happens. First of all, of course, you feel better. Then there's also good karma. But also, there's a trick to this, a good trick, meaning you realize if somebody else was happier today because of something I did, it must mean, here's the key, I have a purpose. It must mean I have value. And it's hard to stay depressed when you have value or purpose, because immediately when you say value or purpose, it means, therefore, there's something I can do. And instead of immobilized, you're ready to roll. Okay? So I appreciate you folks listening. I appreciate your time always. I really do. And your support. God bless you all, and join us soon. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.